Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 1028. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
It is our as you can tell, it's our 19th anniversary weekend celebration for Radio Free Skaro. So noted, because Chris remembered that it was our 19th anniversary on the 15th, late on the 15th, 11:08 p.m. Mountain Time.
For Drake in British Columbia.
No, it was Mountain Time as when it posted in 2006. Our first episode way back when.
No, the age of drinking here is a year older than Alberta for some reason.
Oh, I thought you meant like we were on British Columbia time. No.
No. Just talking about booze.
I understand, as you usually are. So I think we're legal everywhere in Canada now, because it's either 18 or 19.
But not America.
Well, no, because we're a more advanced nation than America. So
that's true.
We can handle our alcohol at an earlier age. That's what I mean to say. So happy birthday us, I guess. Sure, fine. To celebrate this esteemed occasion that I had completely forgot about until literally yesterday, Tom Spilsbury, who, of course, was... ex-Doctor Who magazine editor, but now writes for the largest-selling magazine in Britain, TV Choice. He's got his stuff close to the vest. Not close to the vest. He's got his ear to the ground and talks to a few people in the know in the Doctor Who world and in the TV world as well. So, tell you what. I had a chat with him. It's about 70 minutes long. But there's some very interesting stuff about the current state of Doctor Who that I think needs to be heard. So, without further ado, and we'll talk about it after this, have a listen to my chat with Tom Spilsbury. Tom Spilsbury has been on the show in the past to discuss Doctor Who viewing figures and the TV and streaming universe in general. And with Doctor Who seemingly now in a white void located somewhere between N space and E space, we thought it was time to bring Tom back on to assess the current state of Doctor Who and discuss when, or even if we're going to be completely pessimistic, we can expect future televised adventures of our favorite Time Lord. Tom Spilsbury, welcome.
Hi there. How you doing?
Not bad. It's good to talk to you again. I know that you stepped away from Doctor Who magazine, the editor role several years ago, but you still maintain the viewing figures column in Doctor Who magazine, which I just read this morning on the most recent issue.
I do, yeah. I've got an interview in this issue as well. I interviewed Robin Mukerjee, who was one of the possible writers for the Sylvester McCoy era, although his story was never made. I've got a feature in there as well.
Oh, that was you who did that. I was skimming through the whole thing before I read it all, as I usually do, and I saw the Robin Mukerjee article. I didn't know you were behind that too. Well, I look forward to reading that as well.
Well, he lives in Bristol, and so do I. So it was quite straightforward. I think that was the main reason they asked me, was it would save on bus fare.
Proximity. Yeah.
But that was a pleasure to do that. Actually, it's funny because it was all sort of talking about, for obvious reasons, the sort of the end of the classic show, as we didn't think of it then, of course, and the fact he didn't get that chance to write his script because the show disappeared, rather annoyingly for him at the time. But it was a good chat. Go and check it out if you're a listener here and you're wondering whether to buy Doctor Who magazine this month. There you go. That's my plug for the magazine doing my duty.
I'm sure either wherever this interview is in this week's podcast, we've either have talked about the magazine or will talk about it after this interview. Sometime around there, we'll mention it. Maybe one day there'll be like writers for season 3 of Disney Who that also live in Bristol that you'll talk to about their unused scripts for Doctor Who down the line. I mentioned the ratings column that you do. The thing that British tabloids have used as a cudgel to hit over the head of Doctor Who over the past, I don't know, 40 years, basically. What can you tell us about how the television ratings have been, knowing, of course, that the TV and streaming universe has completely changed things regarding that?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Ratings. I mean, I think perhaps we were better off when we never knew what they were, in a lot of ways. I mean, I'll take some of the blame for that because when in 2005 the series was coming back, I put my hand up and said, "Can I do the ratings report?" Because I knew people would be interested, and so I've been writing that column in DWM for 20 years. But of course, I do remember that they used to report them in probably the late 80s. I think they probably started reporting them round about the time of Trial of a Time Lord. Was a sort of regular thing. And funnily enough, it was about the point when people started to get a bit more worried about that they were dropping a bit.
Yeah.
Because before that, I don't remember them really being. I mean, it was a very different world then, of course. Anyway, that the fewer channels and all the rest of it. But it was also. I think that we've got a long-term memory, haven't we? That one of the reasons they said for Doctor Who being cancelled or not being renewed, if we want to be pedantic about it, was the ratings in the sort of late 1980s, that it was no longer, being competitive in the way that they wanted it to be. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why we get so sort of angsty about ratings and, are they good enough? Are they the right level? And so on. And I think probably as Doctor Who fans, we're sort of rather disproportionately sort of look at it as though that's the be all and end all. And it isn't helped, as you touch on there, that of course it does become a sort of media thing as well. I think the media, not just our print media, but online and everywhere, has become a lot more aware of figures and things as well, so it can be a stick to beat it. Not just Doctor Who. This happens to other shows too. I remember when the X Factor dropped a couple of million, and that was suddenly a crisis. And even though it was still doing very well at the time, So yeah, context is the key word, isn't it, for all of this? And hopefully I can give a bit of context.
Well, it is, and like the programs that were finishing top of the charts on for the week, like the overnights, were like sometimes like less than 5 million, which is unheard of even like 5 years ago. Like that's how much I think everything is sort of pivoted to streaming, from what I can tell.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if I've got the Barb website open at the moment for the most recent week they have on there. So these are the 7-day figures. So that goes from the last few days of July, first few days of August. And the number one show is the first episode of Destination X, and that had 4.347 million viewers. So not quite 4.5 million viewers, and that's number one. And that's a 7-day figure, so that's everyone who watched within 7 days of it being first shown, and everything else is lower. So yeah, I mean, you go back even not that many years, and that kind of number would probably not be enough to get into the top 10, maybe not even the top 20. Go back even further, Doctor Who fans with very long memories will remember that 4.4 million was probably around about the number that the Curse of Fenric was getting or something. When that was at number 98 in the chart or whatever. So yeah, you can see that the whole scale of things has changed, and I think everyone recognizes that to some degree. Where the argument comes in is how much that is relevant and how much we should still think that might be a problem, because it is the case that Doctor Who's viewing figures have gone down over the last few years. It is the case that everything's viewing figures has gone down over the last few years. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a problem. I mean, I think there's a problem generally with television. It's in a bit of trouble in a lot of ways, sort of traditional TV. The way I keep trying to sort of put it, and I think I may have even used this phrase in one of my columns in the magazine, was that whereas once upon a time you were competing against whatever the other channel was showing at the same time, now you're competing with everything ever You're competing with every TV show ever made, potentially, because it's all there on iPlayer, on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, on Disney, what all of the, as well as the traditional channels and ITV Player and Channel 4, unlike, all of them.
Uh-huh.
Doctor Who's competing with its own history, its own past. That's all there. So although that isn't, that's not an excuse. I don't present that as an excuse for anything. It's context. It's making it clear why we're kind of in that sort of position now. I mean, there are a few things which have sort of kept up ish where they were, and notably they're things like the news or sporting events, because of course you can see why, for obvious reasons. There's no reason why that would have dropped in the same way. People are going to be interested in watching the news in more or less the same sort of numbers that they always used to be. Although not quite, it has gone down a bit as well. Because even that, it's got more competition and more different options that we can consume news. So even that's not sort of immune to these effects. But yeah, there's a very rough idea of kind of where we are. The charts now include streaming programs as well. So although on an individual basis we don't see too many streaming shows hitting the charts, there are a few exceptions. Adolescence, did very well earlier in the year. I think we're about to see Wednesday get into the chart next week. I think that's going to chart quite high. But it's just because you've got to sort of imagine it as like a sort of flattened curve. Overall, people are still watching probably as much television as they were, however many hours per week that might be, but it's just spread out over a vastly huge more variety of shows amongst a population, so it's not all sort of bunched up into, this week's episode of A Question of Sport, which is what we all used to have to watch on a Friday night because there was no other choice.
Right. And like Doctor Who's position, like maybe the numbers have fallen like the actual like everything else, but the position how has that sort of been the
position is more or less sort of where it was. So that is a good thing, of course. I think the last season averaged 24th in the chart on the sort of weekly basis, and it's slightly better once you start looking at 28-day numbers. And part of the reason for that is because Doctor Who will still be one of those shows that puts on a few more viewers between day 7 and day 28, whereas other things, like I mentioned, notably things like news broadcasts, nobody's watching an episode of the news more than a week after it was shown. So they tend to stay much the same, and Doctor Who might climb up a few extra places in the chart relative to where it was after 7 days. Yeah, so I think after 28 days, its sort of average position in the chart is sort of about 19th or so, something like that. So, in any given week, it's being beaten by a lot of the things that it often was beaten by in the past. Coronation Street has several episodes a week, so does Emmerdale. You get sort of bigger shows like The Great British Sewing Bee is on at the moment. That does well. I'm trying to think what was on earlier in the year when Doctor Who was on. I'd have to go back and check the charts and see. But, there's a handful of shows which will do better than Doctor Who. Doctor Who, I think this year is averaged about 3.2 million in the 7-day numbers, something like that. And slightly higher in the 28-day figures. I'd have to go back. It's all in my latest column. It's all in the latest Doctor Who magazine. You can go and read it there. I've got if you want the full breakdown. But yeah, it's when you compare it to everything else, it's sort of hitting the kind of chart positions that it was certainly in the Capaldi years and the Jodie Whittaker years, maybe slightly lower than it was in the David Tennant, Matt Smith years, but not significantly so. But we're in a different era for television where the weekly position, or even the position after a month, isn't necessarily the thing we're looking at. There are longer term trends that will be being looked at, because some shows are real long, slow burners. Some programs are still putting on viewers. Look at something like Gavin and Stacey. I think that was clearly something which was, people were coming to it years after the episodes had first been on. I'm sure it's true of a lot of Doctor Who episodes, to be honest. People are watching David Tennant episodes for the first time. So it's really hard in a lot of ways to get a total sense, because any cut-off point that you have is always going to be arbitrary by definition. but yeah, we can try to sort of look at it as a sort of snapshot as where we are and try to get a sort of sense of it all. But yeah, so that's what I try to do when I write those columns in the magazine.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this might be more anecdotal now, but what do you think is like sort of the general level of enthusiasm, perhaps, towards Doctor Who in the UK? Be it in the press, be it in fandom. I feel like personally, it kind of reminds me of the 20th anniversary, where there's this big build up to a huge anniversary event, that being the 20th. Now it's being the 50th, and after that, sort of like, okay, you've had your time in the sun, Doctor Who. Now it just sort of becomes a thing, and there's less of a sort of a build up or a celebration to it, and maybe that sort of has kind of faded out a little bit. 10, 12 years now after the 50th anniversary.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really hard to measure something like this, because I think one of the things that I think what you're sort of talking about is like buzz. How much buzz is there around a show? How much kind of excitement, kind of that unquantifiable way of measuring, excitement and so on. And that is hard because, there are some shows which get big viewing figures, but nobody ever seems to talk about at all. And then there are other things which seem to get so much hype and, magazine covers and lots of clickbait articles online, and yet their viewing figures don't seem to be so big. So, how do we measure that? Well, that's a really hard question to answer. I think you get a feel for it, don't you? And of course, my feeling for it might be different from your feeling for it and everyone else's. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think you do have a point that after these kind of big milestones, as we found, particularly after big anniversaries, there is a sort of dip, because you can't keep up that same level of kind of hype and excitement once you've had the big event. It's always going to be a little bit the come down afterwards. And I think we have seen this isn't just a Doctor Who thing. This can be about anything. I think it happens after a big anniversary for EastEnders or something. It's there's maybe a cautionary tale here that sort of celebrating anniversaries. It's a bit of a double-edged thing. Stephen Moffat always sort of says, you're just reminding people of how old you are and how long you've been around, and now you're not the new thing anymore. And I think he's got a point that it's sort of short-term boost of excitement and hype, but maybe in the long term it doesn't actually do much good. So yeah, I think maybe we're in that kind of point. Doctor Who's got that really good ability to give itself a shot in the arm, hasn't it? That thing that you can have a bit of a dip, and then you have a new Doctor and a new era, and suddenly people go, oh, I might check that out again. It's been a few years since I last watched it, and every time we've always seen at least a little bit of a boost of interest when there's a new Doctor. I mean, I think you're bound to, people are curious. So that's one thing that a lot of shows don't have and can't have, really. So you've always got that in your back pocket for Doctor Who. But even then, there's kind of the idea of how many times can you have a new Doctor before even that novelty starts? But there's another one. Is there? I haven't even got round to watching the one before. That it becomes potentially a little bit, hard to even make that seem new and interesting, in a way. And I don't mean that this is to sort of knock it. I'm just sort of trying to get a sense of, perhaps how it's perceived. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know. I think that other people may see it differently, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely right about this or that other people are wrong. But I think perhaps there's going to be just naturally a certain amount of fatigue when a program has been around for a long time, and even this new version of Doctor Who, and by that I mean starting in 2005, because I don't think people really see the Disney era as a new show or anything, but wow, yeah. It's been there for 20 years, at least one episode every year since 2005, and it's just it just becomes familiar, doesn't it? Do you know there was an episode that was I think it was like a special confidential that they put on before the very first episode of New Doctor Who in 2005.
Yes,
it was on BBC One.
Doctor Who New Dimension. Yeah, very clandestinely narrated by some actor called David Tennant for some reason.
That's right. Now, there's a little bit on that, and I was reminded of this, where Russell T Davies was talking about the sort of fortunes of Doctor Who back in the day. You know, it ran for 26 years. And of course, you know, Russell is a massive fan of Doctor Who. He loved the old show, he loves the whole show. You know, he wasn't being unkind or anything, but, you know, he was being asked about why Doctor Who sort of ended when it did in 1989. And I think he says something along the lines of, well, it just sort of got a bit old. It just got a bit, you know, familiar and kind of unloved. And I think maybe there's an inevitability about this in a way that after 20 or 20, you know, more than 20 years, that's going to happen to an extent. It's just, you know, I don't know how many times you can keep refreshing it before even that feels, oh, here we go again, you know? I don't know. I'm just putting this out there. As I say, I don't mean to knock anyone on, knock the show itself. It's just perhaps the way it feels a bit.
Well,
What do
I
you
mean,
think?
yeah. Well, I mean, it felt, I think, when the Disney deal was announced, like here is a fresh new
Yeah,
beginning. Perhaps we're launching it for a potentially entirely new audience, and like over here, because that's where we watch the show, in Canada here, you know, the publicity behind that first season was immense. I would see ads on it everywhere, every single commercial break on like hockey broadcast during the playoffs, and like, you know, huge peak times, and like there'd be billboards, and they even sent someone from Disney Plus in February of 2023, I guess, or 24, whenever it was, 24 it was, like giving a poster to everyone there. Like there was some real hands-on excitement and everything. Anecdotally, I think there's a website that sort of tracks where the top 10 ranked programs on Disney Plus worldwide, and then for each week, because that's about the best we can hope for ratings when it comes to streaming services. And Doctor Who in that first weekend was 4th on Disney Plus. And never
was that for the first special?
For the the first season 1.
For Space Babies and the Devil's Called when the Shooty Galaxies. Right, okay, I'm with you.
And then it dropped out and was never seen in the top 10 again, sadly. And the enthusiasm for the second season has been next to nothing, and they just sort of dropped it at the middle of the night for Disney Plus, and the publicity wasn't there, and they had no presence at all at the most recent Comic-Con. It was all BBC Studios. So I feel like the Disney thing sort of was going to be like this fresh new thing, but the show itself, I felt like, did not really aim at being a new fresh reboot for new fans. I don't know, how did you sort of see it? It felt to me that it was sort of like trying to like appease fans who have watched the show for a long time, and ostensibly,
it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, insofar as what Disney's expectations were, and you know, the charts for streaming, all of that's a bit of a mystery, to be honest, because I don't think anyone really quite know. They do have sort of charts and things, but it doesn't really sort of tell you how many people watched or kind of across what a period of time and all of that. So it's all a little bit nebulous, isn't it? But in as regards to the, you know, launching it for a new audience and so on, I think it's always a bit of a funny one, that, isn't it? Because you've got an audience there, but you want to put it to a new audience. I guess the idea of you know, making it bigger in territories where it hasn't been so big before is a perfectly legitimate aim. Obviously, here in the UK, I think Doctor Who has its audience, and kind of that's that in a way. I guess you're trying to attract younger kids who obviously weren't around, you know, even 5 years ago, and there'll always be that kind of renewal. But I doubt you're going to find too many people who are in their 40s and 50s are going, oh yeah, I've never watched that, maybe I should give it a go.
Right.
I mean, it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of it's certainly in the UK. I don't think that's likely to happen in the same way. Maybe in Canada, maybe in America, and other places around the world. There's that idea that we can market this as a new thing, and this is the point to jump on board. I mean, I do think it's a funny thing that the Shooty Gatwa era, which, you know, now we can sort of look at it as an era, I guess. You know, it sort of begins with season 1, episode 1, Space Babies, except it doesn't, of course. It starts in the Christmas special beforehand.
Yeah.
Except it doesn't start there. It starts with the giggle because he turns up for the last 20 minutes of that. Except that's not where it starts because there were 3 specials, so it starts with the Starbies. But hang on, it doesn't start there. It starts back in 2008 because we start with a big recap of that, and that's not the start either. I mean, come on, it's odd that I think it was an odd decision to sort of not. I mean, I'm not saying you don't ever refer to anything in the past. I mean, I don't think that's ever totally been true. It wasn't even true in 2005, was it? But it feels like a sort of muddled start, a muddled launching point. You know, where is the beginning of this thing? And I don't. I mean, people will have their own views about whether they thought it was successful from a personal point of view, from a story point of view, from a creative point of view, all of that. You know, I'm not going to tell anyone what they should think, but yeah, I think that feels perhaps not ideal, not ideal for
right.
Trying to attract anyone new. But yeah. What did you think? I keep throwing this back to you. What's your opinion?
Well, I'm like I was. Like early on, when like there's some people who at work here, who's like a person I know had never seen it before, but he had Disney Plus. So I says, "Oh, you know what? This is a perfect jumping on point." And within a couple of weeks, I says, "You know what? This isn't a perfect jumping on point because you really need to know more." I was kind of expecting sort of a 2005-ish reboot where we don't necessarily reboot everything, but we just don't mention anything that came before. So it's a perfect landing point to start.
Then again, I'm going to argue against myself now because I'm that sort of person who likes to see both sides of this. I mean, what are the perfect? I mean, my jumping on point was Destiny of the Daleks in 1979 because that was the first one I was sort of old enough to watch, and it was one of those things where, I got the essential details of the show from watching that. Is it a perfect jumping? Well, you got Romana regenerating at the start. Who is she? What's that going on? I'm not sure there's ever a totally perfect jumping on point unless, and does that go against it? I think you can kind of start anywhere, and then if there's enough that intrigues you, you either go back and watch the older ones, or you look it up, or you just start there and carry on and hope you pick it up by osmosis. I don't know how much it really matters. So yeah, I'm arguing with both caps on there, but I think sometimes we can kind of make these things out to be more important than they are. And the important thing is you make a show and people watch it and they like it, right? I mean, that's got to be that's got to be the bigger focus. And again, that's a slightly different question.
It is. I know you're friends with Stephen Moffat, obviously, and so I won't ask you to speak for him or pretend to. But I
wouldn't speak for anyone except myself.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm friends with Russell as well, and I'm friends with lots of people who work on Doctor Who, and I don't want to upset anybody. My opinions are purely mine, and I'm not presuming to give anyone else's voice but mine, but
absolutely.
Sorry, carry on.
No. I just I interviewed Stephen Moffat. He was on our 1000th episode, amazingly enough, at Gallifrey 1 with Julie Gardner, and then I did a commentary with him, and then I interviewed him again with Jenna Coleman. It was all Stephen Moffat all the time, and I also saw another panel that he was talking about, and it's quite clear that while he, definitely Sue Virtue, have no interest in him running Doctor Who again, he still has some very definite ideas of what could be done with it. And the one that kind of struck me was, he was it reminded me of when Patrick Troughton was in Tomb of the Cybermen, when he's like telling Klieg how to open the Tomb to the Cybermen door, but then telling him not to do it. He was basically saying like maybe Doctor Who should be more serialized, because that's often how TV is consumed nowadays. It's sort of one serialized thing, be it a season or something like that. And he says, I shouldn't be the one to do it, but maybe that's the way that it's almost like he was planting the flag, someone please pick it up, because he thinks that this might be the way to do it. I don't know, what are your opinions of perhaps like just sort of like Doctor Who, like kind of changing format and sort of becoming
they did that a
show.
bit with Flux, didn't they? I mean, that was... That was, and I think they had some success with that. I won't bore anyone with my own critical view of it, but that was the format they tried for it, and I think that did feel a bit different and interesting. So yeah, I mean, why not? I've always thought I'd love to see a sort of 21st century version of the Daleks' master plan. You know, where you kind of actually have a sort of 12-week epic where you can have individual bits where they go off to not necessarily Egypt or whatever, but do you know what I mean? You can kind of basically have an overarching thing like that. I think that would be tremendous. But yeah, I mean, you kind of, I mean, Doctor Who always sort of looks around and sort of sees where, what the current way of doing things is, doesn't it? I mean, Doctor Who is a great copycat show in a way.
Yeah.
As well as having, but also it does do its own thing as well. I mean, back in the old days, it was always like there were no other series that did 4-part stories of 25 minutes, really, or barely anything. That was just Doctor Who. That seems odd looking back, whereas that kind of 45-minute complete episode format is quite common, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, there are any number of ways it could be done. That's down to whoever takes charge of it in the future and has a view on it. You're right, Stephen I think will never stop having a view on it, as all of us Doctor Who fans will probably never stop having an opinion on it. That doesn't necessarily mean that any of us would do a better job or would want to do it as a job, but yeah, I think maybe a different approach would be good, but then Doctor Who has taken different approaches. I mean, I think that approach that Russell took in 2005, that kind of, we're going to have a modern day story, then we'll have one in the future, then we'll have one in the past, then we'll do a two-parter, and then what? Do you know what I mean? That kind of season,
the pattern, so to speak. Yeah.
And broadly speaking, that approach was done for the first 5 seasons, really, wasn't it? Right up to Matt Smith's first season of having and then a two-parter later in the season, and then a two-parter to finish up. And then Stephen kind of changed it for Matt Smith's second year, didn't he? Where the Impossible Astronaut, we're going to start with a two-parter, then we're going to have a mid-season cliffhanger. And that felt very new and different and exciting at the time, didn't it? It felt like, this isn't the form we expect now. This is slightly, wrong-footed us, it's changed the whole shape of it. So I think that kind of stuff can be good from time to time to give it a different feel.
Like when you can't necessarily, reboot the show per se and its continuity, you can sort of reboot the way you tell it. I think maybe that's the way you sort of keep something fresh. I agree. Flux was perhaps born of circumstance because of COVID and everything, but at the time I thought and maybe you don't have the universe end in every single story, but I felt like this is kind of the way you get around telling a story, which is how people like to sort of consume TV these days, one complete season, shorter season, but told over several parts. But also it was called mostly called Doctor Who Flux. It wasn't called Doctor Who Season 13. And there's a way that you can get around that numbering system and sort of telling you how many seasons there are, and maybe you've missed some,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a sort of a slightly pedantic point about the sort of the branding or whatever. But it's in the same way that do you remember like films always used to be, they just used to put a number on, so you just get Terminator, then Terminator 2.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to think of an example. Well, I suppose the Star Trek films, they just had
have numbers
1,
on
2,
them.
3, 4, 5, 6, until we got to a point where actually they stopped putting the number on, because actually the number is actually a bit off-putting. Just call it Star Trek Generations, Star Trek First Contact, and ditch the number. And that's certainly the case with a lot of movie franchises now, isn't it? That numbers, particularly when they get a bit high, kind of are probably more to their detriment than they are a good. And it's not like they actually necessarily make a big deal out of season 13 or whatever we're on now. I don't even know what number we are on now. I mean, this is why. Was it? I mean, overall, it's like about 41, isn't it? But I mean, it's season 2 of Disney and season 15 if you start from
2005.
So yeah, but I mean, actually, Stephen made this point when he was relaunching with Matt Smith, didn't he? And I know for various reasons it kind of didn't sort of take to call that season one again, but I think the point was valid. That it just after a while it just starts getting unmanageable. You
Uh-huh.
know, so Peter Davison doesn't talk about doing season 19 unless someone's primed him to. He talks about doing his first season and his second season and his third season, third year,
Yeah.
because that's how he remembers it in his head. And I think for a lot of normal people, of which you and I aren't, Stephen, you know,
Right.
that's how people would think of it.
Yeah.
We can only count to about three before we have to go back to one again. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
we're getting off the point, aren't we?
A
But
little bit. I asked, I told you don't speak for Stephen Moffat. You said he never would, but I will ask just because, you've obviously spoken with him many times. When you do talk to him about Doctor Who, as we all inevitably start, getting to there, do you sense he's talking about Doctor Who as an old fan or as a former showrunner? Which do you sense like the sides of him sort of like battling each other?
if we meet up quite regularly, and we always talk as fans, because that's what we are.
Yeah.
If we're going out to Pizza Express and we're having a chat about it, we're talking as two mates who are Doctor Who fans. Yes, of course, he is a former showrunner and a current showrunner for the shows that he's doing now. So if he's got that perspective, and I think he's an incredibly intelligent person, but he's got his own tastes and feelings about things, as you would expect. So yeah, in the end, once you're a viewer again, you just go back to being a fan. That's what I am right now. I guess when I was doing Doctor Who magazine, I had a slightly different relationship with it because yes, I was a fan, but also I read every script before it was made. I read every um uh all the information around. In a way,
Yeah.
I kind of had a picture of the episodes before they even made them, and then sometimes I'd think, oh, that's not quite how I thought it was going to be, or you end up with perspectives based on that. Whereas now I can just watch it like everybody else does and not really have any kind of preconceived notions about it. Um so yeah, which is a more pure way to watch it, isn't it? That's you're not supposed to watch a TV program by knowing what happens before you see it.
Yeah.
That's not the way. However much some people like spoilers, that's not the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one thing. I mean, I am always intrigued about like who's making the show and who's directing it and everything. But don't tell me any plot details. I don't want to know until I'm watching it. Go out,
Yeah, it's and of course sometimes again this would happen, wouldn't it? There's we gave some things away in the magazine because you want to get excitement about it. You have to tell people something. So yeah, that was always a tricky thing of balancing it. I remember. Do you remember when that Impossible Astronauts season we did a sort of thing about someone's going to die in the first episode?
Yep.
Yeah, it caused a bit of controversy among some fans because some fans didn't like that. And you can't please everybody because you are trying to strike a balance between creating excitement and not giving things away. But yeah, I mean, when you sort of agree with, in this case, Stephen, that will be our way to sort of promote it. We're going to let you know that some big thing like that's going to happen. There's going to be a death. You sort of know there's going to be a bit of trickery about it anyway, but it creates a hook, then that's promotion, isn't it? You're trying to create a hook.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, I know it's not official, but
Yeah.
it certainly doesn't look like Disney is going to be back since the show is currently not in production.
Well, they haven't been quick to say anything, have they? I mean, it's
No.
Silence is the one thing we've got, and of course, people will read whatever they want into that. I mean, and they won't necessarily tell us if they decide that they're not going to want to do any more. That doesn't automatically mean that there'll be an announcement of that. In some ways, it's best not to say anything. So we are kind of left to wonder what the silence means. And I suppose the thing with that is that we do know they've got these 5 episodes of the spin-off still to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in some ways, it makes sense not to kind of preempt that because you want that to go out and be as big a success as it can be without the kind of the shadow of what's going on with Doctor Who as far as possible. But yeah, I mean, we kind of, I don't know. My gut feeling is that Disney won't renew, but do I know that for certain? No, of course I don't. I don't know what the discussions may be. I think there's a sort of feeling that if they were absolutely bowled over with its success, they would have, announced something already. It's not like, so, but then, you know, we're sort of looking at other examples, aren't we, of things that they either renewed or didn't. I mean, what was the Star Wars show that was on a while back that got a lot of hype and then apparently did quite well? And I think they even announced that it had done quite well, and then they didn't bring back any more of it.
It was The Acolyte, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it costs so much money for the most part. I think that's another factor that's sort of
that's it. And so we're also trying to get a sense of, well, where does Disney fit into where does Doctor Who fit into Disney's plans rather? It's possibly not. Their expectations for it aren't going to be the same as what it might be for Star Wars. Maybe it's not costing as much. So are the expectations low? Again, these are questions we don't really know the answer to. We're kind of guessing, but it's interesting. Streamers are such a mysterious entity. I'm going to go off on a slight tangent now, if I may. But I was recently out in Australia on set for Neighbours, which of course people may know was renewed by Amazon for after the big finale of 3 years ago. Because that got such a wave of excitement about that and interest, it was brought back almost instantly, and Amazon announced they were going to fund it or co-fund it, and we've had 2 more years of Neighbours. And now, partly because Amazon Freevee has disappeared, and they were the ones who commissioned it, that particular part of Amazon. Neighbours is coming to an end again. They're not renewing it. But when I asked the exec producer, Jason Herbison, what that, sort of relationship looked like and what the viewing figures were like. It always seemed to be in Amazon's top 10 every day. Quite often top 3. It seemed to be doing well compared to everything else. He said we've never had any viewing information from Amazon at all. They just don't give it out to it, even to them. They're the production team, and I suspect I don't know for certain. I suspect that's exactly the same for Doctor Who. Jason Herbison was being very frank with me because I mean, he it's a show that as it stands is going to come to an end. Although that might be more complicated, we shall see. But but I if they don't have to give out information, they won't, because of course as soon as you give out any of this information and have a sort of a chart or a chart with numbers on it, you're kind of by implication showing how everything else is doing. So it's not just you're not just giving out information about that one show, you're giving out information about every other show as well, which is one of the reasons why I think these streamers, they don't want that information out there. If you kind of know how many people are watching Neighbours on Amazon Prime, and you can see it there in the chart, you can see by implication how many people are maybe watching Rings of Power or other Amazon shows, and actually suddenly these numbers might not look as impressive as you think they must be. So actually keeping it in a sort of foggy realm of mystery is actually quite helpful for them in a weird way. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, because you can sort of, I think we sort of know how many people might be watching Neighbours. We know how many people were watching it on Channel 5 back in those days, and we know it's going to be probably less than that. So what does it say for these shows that Neighbours is beating? How many people are watching some of these big budget shows? Not that many. So it's interesting. What conclusions can we draw from that? Well, I think, a lot of streamers have overspent. They've spent a lot of money. They've invested in a lot of things, and of course, we all only have so many hours in our day to watch telly. A lot of these shows are not getting huge numbers because, as I was saying earlier in our interview, there are so many things that they're all competing with. So yeah, we're in a very interesting place in the TV industry right now, where huge amounts of money have been spent, but the actual number of people watching any individual show might not be that big.
I know it's you're right. I mean, and as you say, that's not just Doctor Who. I mean, there's Disney Plus doesn't give numbers out. Paramount doesn't give. They'll often try to coax it out by like, here are minutes watched or something like that, and you'll have to like do them out. What does that mean? Netflix famously
it's deliberately kind of ambiguous, isn't it? Minutes. Well, what I don't even know what that means. You sort of have to start getting my calculator, and again. If you can give out a big number saying, look, overall, the number of minutes watched was 4 million and something, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I'm sure, how many minutes watched of EastEnders has there been?
Right, exactly.
I'm sure it's a colossal number, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
It's I start having to work out how many episodes there are and how many, it's kind of crazy. So that seems to be, again, it's obfuscation in a sense of kind of showing, if you can put out a number that sounds big, then that's great. That sounds impressive, but you can give the same information in a different form, and it doesn't sound impressive at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all. Of course, there is spin that goes on with this stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. The numbers that really count is the money, right? I mean, if something isn't making the money back, then is it worth doing it? That's a bigger question, and of course, that's again an even more mysterious thing because we don't really know how much money is being spent. We don't really know how much advertising is brought in. We don't know. Do you know what I mean? So we're just dealing with extra levels of unknown there.
We are, and it's but everything costs more money. We don't know how many people are watching it, but it feels because of that cost. It's very. I mean, people at the BBC and BBC Studios have been very public about this. They basically can't make shows that aren't co-productions anymore.
Well, I mean, the license fee is not kept up with, the cost of what programs. I mean, this has been the case for years. I mean, even before the Disney stuff, we know that the Doctor Who was being funded with money from the commercial side. There was a lot that was coming in from that side. I mean, effectively, the amount of money that BBC One itself puts in to show it is fairly small now. I mean, if they make Doctor Who, BBC One will want to show it, but how much money are they actually putting in themselves? Not a huge proportion of it. But that, again, this is not unusual. This is the case with so many programs, that they, again, if I may just briefly go back to my example of Neighbours, part of the problem there was that although it's got what on the face of it seem good numbers, who's putting up the money? They don't have the money for it to make it purely for an Australian audience. It's got to it's got to come from elsewhere. So there is a conundrum with all of this stuff. If it's not making your money back, is it worthwhile? And I think for a long time, streamers have kind of chucked money around as if there were no tomorrow, and actually we're seeing a slightly more cautious approach now, because there was a point when all these streamers were absolutely on the up, and when Netflix was a new thing and that was getting bigger and bigger. Now there's more competition out there, and they can't just chuck money around like there's no tomorrow, or they don't want to, because that's Disney and Amazon are big companies who technically can do that. They can write off huge amounts there and do that if they wish. But I mean, even these huge corporations don't want to just chuck money away for no reason. It's got to justify itself. So
yeah. I mean, even like when they signed the deal, like I've sort of been, I have someone highly placed who knows someone in BBC marketing who basically told me that the reason Doctor Who got included in a Disney deal is because BBC Studios had the international rights to Bluey, which has been
I've heard that too. Yes, absolutely
massive for them, and so it was easy to get that across. And also, it came at a time when Bob Iger was the CEO of Disney. His brief 18-month tenure, and when he came in, it was like sort of spending willy-nilly, and then Bob Chapek was there. Bob Iger came back and said, okay, we're losing money, cut stuff, and so that's another reason probably why Doctor Who maybe won't be renewed, because it cost, it was a thing that cost money that wasn't directly related to it. with the BBC.
Of course, what might work for
yeah,
Disney might not be something that would be the same for another
yeah.
partner potentially. I mean, they will have different priorities, and of course, there's the whole issue of the back catalogue, which people talk about. How valuable is that? If you can have a huge amount of material, you can just put down on your platform, and is going to get those number of minutes watched or whatever it was,
Yeah.
then that's great, isn't it? Again, that's what happened with Neighbours. They could put literally thousands of episodes on there, and as well as the new stuff, and that was very attractive. So yeah, having a back catalogue is definitely a draw. But here's an interesting question.
Okay.
If you can make a lot of money out of something by just having episodes that have already been made, how much need is there to make new stuff? Or to put it another way, how little do you need to make of the new stuff in order to sort of keep it kind of flickering on, without actually needing to, do you need to make 14 episodes a year like they used to? You don't really. Could you get away with just making the occasional one? If you've got a lot of old episodes there, how much new Doctor Who do you actually need? And again, look, I'm not saying this to be cynical. I'm just trying to say this to be sort of realistic and from a business point of view, from a purely dispassionate point of view. Can Doctor Who still be very successful and profitable even if you don't make it? Well, yes, it can. Certainly for a while. But I'm not indefinitely. I think at some point it is helpful to actually have new product. That's going to be true. But is it an absolute necessity to have a new episode of Doctor Who at Christmas or next year or when? Not necessarily. I would suggest. Again, look, I'm speculating.
Yep.
I want to keep stressing this. I don't, have definitive answers about any of this. I'm an armchair commentator as much as anyone else. But I do get a sense of where the industry is, I suppose, and what how people talk about it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, just because I mean, obviously, Doctor Who, for the most part, is on iPlayer, barring the odd the episode or two written by someone.
Yeah. And all the missing ones, of course.
But, and that too. But all modern Who's
let's not open that can of
worms. No. But all the modern Who's there. As of July 31st, outside of the UK, modern Doctor Who, being 2005 to 22, has disappeared. Yeah. It's no longer on HBO. It's no longer on Crave or Prime anywhere here. It disappeared off of, I think, Stan and Australia, so it no longer has a home. And it feels to me, this is me speculating again, perhaps a little bit with some hopium there, is that maybe BBC Studios, which clearly is still interested in this, because they've not only, they had a booth at Comic-Con that was purely BBC Studios, but it feels to me like maybe they're making a push maybe to sort of have, here's one stop home for all of modern Doctor Who that you can access anywhere around the world outside of the UK, and that could be your streaming home for it. You could catch up with all the Doctor Who that you might have missed over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and usually these kind of streaming rights will be for a particular amount of time, so then they'll expire and they'll either get renewed or there'll be a new deal fixed up or whatever. So yeah, I don't know how significant it is that that's happening right now at this point. It depends what was agreed in the first place, but yeah, it could well be that. But there's talk about getting all of these put on a particular platform. Maybe there are discussions about how that will work with Disney or anyone else. I mean, I guess at this point, assuming the Disney deal is still potential, they're not going to be talking to anyone else, because that's kind of how these things would work. That you can't really sort of shop around elsewhere when you've still essentially got a partner. There will be a point when that may not be the case anymore. But you kind of have to be loyal to the the partner you've already got until such point as you're not. Disney will have a notional date at which point they have to have made a decision. We don't know when that might be. It might be the end of the year. It might be a year after the last episode was shown or whatever. I mean, there could be, depends what the contract was, and I haven't seen that, and I don't suppose anyone else
No.
who's listening to this will have done either. But there will be a point at which options expire, and I mean we've seen this even in the past in Doctor Who's own history. When there were the rights potentially with Universal after the Paul McGann film and so on. That eventually, if that option isn't taken up, then the rights revert back and so on. So that's one of the reasons why potentially there could be a bit of a wait, because contractually there has to be, unless anyone decides to go ahead. We have to wait until the give them the time that they're allowed to before coming back with their answer.
What do you think about the BBC's enthusiasm for it? I say this only because Charlotte Moore, I think, who's been a champion for Doctor Who, was the BBC chief content officer, has now left. Oddly enough, to take a chief content position at Sony Pictures International, which of course has a majority stake in Bad Wolf. But Kate Phillips is now in, and she has more of a background of like unscripted programs, which is usually, let's face it, the shows that are getting more ratings than Doctor Who that we were talking about at the beginning of this. What do you think the enthusiasm towards Doctor Who is from the very top at the BBC now that this change has happened?
Very interesting point. I mean, what you initially said, the BBC, and of course, you've quickly pivoted to talking about individuals, and that's probably better, a better way of looking at it in a way, because the BBC doesn't think anything as an entity. It's lots of different people who have their different thoughts about it, and actually Charlotte Moore was very pro Doctor Who, in the sense that not that people are necessarily pro or anti it, but just that it was something that was important to her, clearly, and it gets moved to the top of the priority list. And if you have someone who has got other priorities, then Doctor Who might be lower in that priority list. Right. So I think one thing that people don't always appreciate so much is that we can talk about ratings, we can talk about facts and figures, we can talk about chart positions and all of that, but actually some of this is going to come down to the whims of the individual. Is this something which, as I say, is top of my list of priorities to deal with today? Again, that's true of anything. We've seen programs in the past which were very successful but didn't have the support inwardly at the BBC. I think something like Newtrix was an example of that, a very popular show, but I don't think there was much enthusiasm for it within the sort of top levels of the BBC, certainly once it had been around for a long time. And that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because when you're in the top job, you kind of want to have your own successes. The successes of your predecessor can't really be your successes in the same way, if you're just continuing something on. And that's one of the reasons why, when something has been around for that amount of time, it's hard for people to be as enthusiastic for it, because you've got the exciting new thing instead. That's the thing. Whether that's the Traitors. I mean, well, that's had 3 series. It's not that new, but it's still something that's exciting and talked about, and it feels like it's got the hype factor, or whatever it might be. So I don't know. I don't know what it's Kate Phillips now, isn't it? Yeah. You mentioned. I never met Kate Phillips. I've no idea what her personal view on Doctor Who might be, but it's another unknown factor, because we kind of knew a bit what Charlotte Moore was like, and now she's gone, So yeah, it does make it. We saw this again in the past with Doctor Who. We know that there were controllers and drama commissioners who were very pro Doctor Who, and then others that were a little more lukewarm on it. If we go back to the 1990s, for example, I think we all know the ones that were perhaps, if not openly hostile, certainly weren't as keen on it. But so time will tell. That's the real takeaway from this, isn't it? And my feeling is, and again, I can only talk about a sort of gut feeling, sort of informed by what I've heard about individual people or whatever. But this stuff might not move very quickly. I mean, it might do. I'm not saying it won't. I'm not saying anything definitive.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I sense that this could just take its time, to all get resolved. I don't think there's any doubt that Doctor Who will be made again. I'm quite sure that Doctor Who has got a future.
Right.
Um, but it just feels at the moment like there's a pause and nobody can quite see what that future might be. Um, and how best to approach it and what the, you know, what the what is the bold new direction now.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, as I say, time will tell. But I don't know what's your sense? Do you get
Well,
that kind of thing?
I mean, I do kind of. I feel like it's. I mean, again, this is me just speaking anecdotally too, and just getting a sense in things. But like when BBC Studios put out a call to like independent producers to say, submit your pitch for a CBeebies version of Doctor Who for 52 11-minute episodes, 26 to air in 2027 or 28, I think it was, and 26 more the next year. I feel like, to me, it feels like they're sort of like kind of like resting it back under control and sort of like starting a young generation with a new actual Doctor Who story, and sort of like taking and like building it basically from there. And so maybe by the time those kids become 7 or 8 or something like that, they'll have a new TV show that will kind of be for them, in 5 to 7 years from now. I don't know.
I don't know whether we can read too much into the future of Doctor Who, the main show, from what CBeebies might or might not be doing. I think it's that BBC Studios will always want to sort of find new ways that they can exploit it and have big crossover events, and let's do a comic and an audio extravaganza that can span these kind of things. And I know a bit from when I was at the magazine that they were always keen on whatever ways they could find new ways to do it, and especially if there is a void of any period. I mean, we had that a little bit in 2016 when there wasn't a series, and I remember it was full of kind of these kind of discussions about new ways they can sort of bring Doctor Who content and all that kind of slightly sort of media talk of these kind of things. Always content, and so yeah, I mean, it makes sense that you would try to find ways to do that. But I think it's sort of incidental to main Doctor Who, main show Doctor Who, in a sense. I think that's that's coming from a slightly different place, and we'll see. I mean, as I say, I don't have the answers. I think we are in a sort of limbo now, whether we realize it or not. It might be this wilderness that we're in may not last as long as previous wildernesses,
right?
But we are in a period. Again, people might not have quite sort of appreciated this. Doctor Who has stopped. It's only really stopped sort of a couple of times before, where the last episode has gone out and there is no commission for a new one. I think that the only times that's happened in the past has been Survival Part 3 and the TV movie.
Yeah.
And now here with the Reality War, the last episode on, and so yes, it's as I say that this might sound over melodramatic, but in a sense, Doctor Who doesn't have to be cancelled. They just, in effect, it's just the absence of a decision to make more amounts to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I am quite positive that there will be more at some point. Does anyone really think they will never make Doctor Who ever again? I don't think even the most cynical of people really think that. It's just a question of how long, and the longer this sort of stretches on, we could just find that in effect, if a year passes, a couple of years, because these things might take a while to sort out, especially if there might be a new production partner or what demands they might have. All of this stuff can take time, and then you've got to write it and make it and get it on telly. It's you might find that by that point, 4 or 5 years have passed, and effectively you're talking about a new relaunch. After all, the TV movie was only 6.5 years after Survival, wasn't it? And then, That felt like a long time at the time, but
It
I
sure
think actually,
did.
it's. I mean, this is partly getting old, you and me. Actually, we talk about 5 years now, and it's kind of nothing, you know. I'm sure the Doctor Who fans who are in their 20s have a totally different perspective on this, because that probably would feel like an eternity, you know, 5 years. But everything takes longer now, doesn't it? You know, we're actually much more used to TV shows, even ones that haven't been cancelled, possibly having 2 or 3 years between seasons. So that's just something we all have to get used to.
I suppose so, and I'm sure that that we'll all be talking about it every single week in pizza bars with friends and former showrunners and everything else over the years.
If they could announce a week after, you know, you put this podcast out that they've come to a new deal and there's going to be a new season on, you know, in 2026, 2027, or whatever it might be, that could happen. So which would make us all look very silly, wouldn't it? I mean, as I say, I am entirely happy to be kind of wrong about this, but my feeling is it might take a little while. But yeah, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't have any ego about that.
Right. Well, it's intriguing. It's intriguing to see where we'll look at. I'm you know, going back to our previous conversation about you know, serialized TV and everything. We're at the time right now. We haven't put out the episodes yet, but we're rewatching Tortured Children of Earth, because it's another 5-part series set on Earth, not featuring Doctor Who, and like we kind of gave it a bit of short shrift at the time because it all happened in a week and it happened so fast, and we realized it was really great. So we're reassessing it now, and you know, just the groundwork. There's even the same character. Colin McFarlane's playing the same character in both this and The War Between the Land and the Sea.
Oh, he is, isn't he? Yeah,
he is.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so weirdly, in a way, this sort of like intended like first step in the massive Whoniverse that The War Between was intended to be at the time might indeed be the last thing that Doctor Who, the BBC Studios, and Disney produced together. Might be the way forward in telling stories in the Doctor Who universe. What is your assessment of The War Between the Land and the Sea?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it was obviously part of the original deal that they struck, that there was going to be this number of episodes, and you know, 5 of them were going to be a spin-off. So it's a slightly odd thing that we've got that to come when there's no confirmation of what Doctor Who's future itself will be. So it feels odd, doesn't it? But but everything I've heard is that it's going to be good. You know, it's so I don't think it will make a massive difference to Doctor Who's future one way or the other, because I think by definition spin-offs don't get the same amount of attention. You know, there may be exceptions in. I can't think of one at the moment, but you know, it's odd because it's not like BBC One does a lot of other sci-fi or kind of this kind of show, really, is it?
No.
Whether it's the Doctor Who spin-off or not, it sort of feels like an odd fit for BBC One to me, but that not necessarily a bad thing. It could get a bit of interest, and I'm sure. I mean, I was emailing Pete McTighe the other day, and he said he's hard to work at post-production, and everyone seems really happy with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. But yeah, I don't think it's the sort of the key to Doctor Who's future particularly. I don't suppose anyone would really think that it is, but it's I suppose it's sort of a statement of intent, isn't it? That you know, we were going to have this, you know, era with spin-offs and you know, potential new branches to the Doctor Who multiverse or whatever, and that doesn't appear to have quite, at least as it stands, it doesn't appear like it's going to be the first of many spin-offs. So yeah, again, time will tell.
Yeah, well, even like that's how much has changed even in the time that when they announced the Disney deal in like 2022, I guess it was. just days after The Power of the Doctor went out, and there'd be like, oh, multi-universe and this and everything, and like everyone's enthusiasm towards the Marvel, extended universe has sort of decidedly waned. Where I think everyone's saying there are too many streaming service series now, and the movies have gone downhill, and now Disney is actively making fewer series and movies because of that.
But this is it. Where we were in 2021, 2022, the TV industry and the streaming world has really changed. When this stuff was being announced, it's changed so much. It's not that long ago, and yet it kind of is. So, this stuff is constantly evolving. But yeah, we're in a position now post-pandemic. I mean, we were still sort of in the midst of it when the Disney deal was being announced, wasn't it? But I think a lot of this looks quite different now at this point. The kind of things which were being attempted maybe wouldn't be attempted now. It feels that there has been a certain scaling back, if you'll pardon the pun, of a lot of this stuff. So, yeah.
Well, as you say, time will tell. It always does. Look forward to see what shape or form Doctor Who has in the future on TV. But when it comes a time, I'm sure I'll probably have you on again, Tom, to talk about the future.
Oh well, I'm always happy to chat. And you can edit it down to the 5 minutes that's interesting. But
never. Always good to talk about Doctor Who and with you, Tom Spilsbury. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Tom. That was most insightful. I think he raised some interesting points, especially, I mean, the one that jumps out at me is, and I'll quote it from our own interview from a few minutes ago, is here's an interesting question. If you can make a lot of money out of something by just having episodes that have already been made, how much need is there to make new stuff? How much new Doctor Who do you actually need from a business point of view? I mean,
much as I hate raw business, it's a valid point. And also if you make more of it and it isn't good, or for whatever reason people don't like it, then that makes the other stuff less valuable. So there you go.
That's true. I just think of streamers that go after like archive library content is like an Apple TV Plus. Oh, you don't have any library content was a common refrain. It took a while to build it up, of course. But Netflix, you look at like the highest rated series on Netflix and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the new shiny, but oftentimes it's just like 13 seasons of Friends or 13 seasons of something else that has come before.
Grey's Anatomy or CSI.
But on the other hand, Netflix, weirdly enough, went kind of the other direction and made a ton. I mean a ton, not all of it good, obviously, of their own stuff. And that's what their library is now, kind of like Apple, but crappy.
It is, but they still dine out on having like all those,
that's true,
older shows.
But it used to be all that, and now it isn't.
Yeah, so that's an interesting, and that just like, that it's you read into that and you think, okay, this might just be what the BBC is thinking right now, where we're basically just sort of keeping the ball in the air a little bit while we wait to potentially make new Doctor Who in the years to come. Why don't we market and sell the 15 seasons worth, not including specials, of modern Who that we've made so far? I mean, that's a when you think about it, that's a lot of Doctor Who. It has been going on a long time, and it's a lot to be able to sell to people.
Just like at Netflix right now, their global top 10 shows, August 4th to 10th. 6 of the 10 are Netflix series.
Okay. I suppose they are.
Two of them were Wednesday.
Of course.
Two of them are Wednesday season 1, season 2.
1, season 2.
Everyone catching up on season 1 before they watch season 2.
I gather that's very popular with people who are not our age, basically. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, probably. Haven't watched it. Haven't watched The Addams Family either, so I don't know what's
201.6 million hours watched.
What does that even mean? As we talked about in the interview, like, what does that even mean anymore? Ratings used to be a little more finite. Now it's like hours watched and minutes watched, and
especially
makes
with
as much
having,
sense as SEO.
Yeah,
everything having a different runtime, that kind of makes that even less less useful as a guide.
That too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Tom. Thanks. We asked him a little while ago about he sort of hummed and hawed and thought about it, and so it came on. And, we had a nice little chat there. It's always good to talk to Tom Spilsbury. He's been on 2 or 3 times in the past talking about be it streaming, be it the state of the industry and stuff like that. So it's good to check in on that. It might not be, he does say like he is quite positive that there will be more Doctor Who at some point, but the sense that it's going to take some time is not an uncommon one, I think, from people in the know,
And I don't think when it comes back, it'll be quite as splashy about it as it was this time.
It'll be curious, when the time comes for it to will it just sort of slip under the radar? I feel like the BBC won't let it just slip under the radar. I think they're going to make a big thing about it.
But that's only going to be in Britain. The rest of the world, who knows?
Exactly. It won't be this big Disney level thing.
No.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor there is going to be who actually steps in as to what kind of grandeur is going to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Well, that if anything is going to be the delay in stuff. What they'll need some sort of another distributor partner, something like that to
potentially.
Bring new episodes to being.
There's the option of just doing it all in-house at a greatly reduced budget. But,
it'll be a multicam 6-part
series. Hey, you never know. Where is the problem?
You never know.
I know. The BBC is just going to have to revert back. Thinking, we had to sell off all of our 4K cameras. But hey, we still had a whole warehouse full of these 625 line just ones from color.
Turns out we still own Lime Grove, so here we are.
So let's get going. Let's open it up again. Riverside Studios, clear out. We got some Doctor Who to make. We'll see in the future. Anyway, this is already going to be a long episode, even though the three of us only now have just started recording. But of course, I had that interview earlier on this week. But first off, before we get onto the news, I will say I don't listen. I don't even remember when I promised this or what, because we've recorded commentaries for the Sunmakers, which comes out later on this podcast feed in the weeks to come, but it's already been out for the Patreon people. I threatened, I promised, because we were going to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan this past week, and to see if I could get a photo of the Henry Wolfe Theatre at the University of Saskatchewan, named after Henry Wolfe, of course, who played the Collector in Doctor Who, then later moved to Saskatoon and became a theatre legend. And I did. I managed to go there. The doors were open. I thought it would be okay, well, it's a university because I guess they're open all summer because that's what, universities do. And I went in there, and there's 3 or 4 people saying, "Oh, you can't go into that theater because there's a class right there." And it says, "Oh, what is there? The Henry Wolfe Theater?" And it says, "Oh, there's a class there too." So I just want a picture of his son. Oh yeah, come here. So maybe I'm not the first person to actually get a picture of the sign outside.
How much of that is not to do with Doctor Who at all? If he's a theater legend in Saskatchewan, maybe it's theater people.
Didn't you have to fight off 30 people to get at the sign?
I didn't know there was sword practice going on in the theater, which is kind of cool actually. Because I'm thinking, oh yeah, people doing swords, they still do that sword practice.
I think stage fighting is the proper term.
Stage fight. We'll do sword play. I don't know what it is. So anyway, there's a nice little plaque. No mention of Doctor Who on that plaque, which is an oversight. But
I did zoom in when you sent me the picture and looked for a Doctor Who mention. Sadly,
yeah. I posted on a Blue Sky and everywhere else. Maybe if I remember, I'll re-blued it from the RFS account when this episode comes out. But yeah, it's kind of a cool moment to finally, at long last, pay tribute to a rare Doctor Who connection in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. But I did it. Anyway, on with the rest of the news. The Whoniverse Show is a brand new initiative from the BBC.
Confusing is what I say this is.
It was interesting.
Timing-wise especially.
Very curious. So Crystal D, of course, was the fan show, and then also was the Doctor Who podcast host, the official one, for the first season. They changed it up last season, I think. And they brought her back and Terrell Charles, who does the New to Who segments as well, and was also on that podcast. It's going to be, by the looks of it, a monthly show, based on the fact that they had a prop of the month, and it'll be over the next few months at the very least. So yeah, right when there's no Doctor Who being made right now, the BBC is launching a new YouTube show to just sort of keep interest going, I guess. I mean, a lot of the stuff they talked about on this was essentially like everything is available on DoctorWho.tv, except they actually had the exclusive launch of a new book, The Art of Time Travel, which looks pretty cool. Some concept.
It looks
art
very cool, actually. Yeah.
They had the first look at that. But yeah, your thoughts, gentlemen, on BBC Studios doing this now, not when a show is actually airing, but after a show is airing.
Chris, do you want to go first, or shall I?
Oh, sure. I'll jump in. This was not on my radar, I'll say that much.
No,
the timing of this is, it's so weird. Why, like the Simpsons joke, why now? Why not 20 years ago? It just makes no sense. I'm glad to see Crystal D back in the fold.
Yeah,
I was going to say the same thing. She's very good at this stuff.
Even outside of events like this, if you follow her on Instagram, she's still doing a lot of like her own thing, but at Doctor Who cons or cosplay or just Doctor Who reels and videos, whatever. Mm-hmm. So she's still in there like a dirty shirt, as it were. But and Terrell Charles, like you say, the new to Who stuff, that's kind of good. That was great. A great thing to have during Disney's entry into the Doctor Who realm. But
when you needed it, yeah, I know.
Through 2.5 months after the Shudigawa second series is wrapped or wrapped airing, whatever, and we have this now. Okay, why? I don't know.
Yeah, my take on it was, at first when I heard about it, I'm like, is this stuff they just left over? But no, they're actually covering current stuff, so this is being made.
Yeah,
but
it was the first one was covering the unit thing at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
My other thought was, well, maybe when you had the show itself and the behind the scenes stuff and Unleashed and all this other stuff, they just didn't have room, or thought they didn't have room to throw this out there as well. And that's why, and maybe they had this plan at the same time and said, maybe we'll push this one to the side till later. I mean, I'm just guessing here. I have no idea, but that would be, and it's also a hype machine of sorts for War Between the Land and Sea, I suppose.
I think it is. For me, I think this was maybe not planned, but maybe it was planned for a couple of months, because they'd actually send someone down to. Because Christina Ariel is based in the U.S., so maybe they didn't send. But
and
it isn't
also
like
good at this stuff.
Yeah, it's I think this is BBC Studios basically putting their stamp on it. The Comic-Con presence there was all BBC Studios. I think they're saying, this is our show now. It's not being made by Disney anymore. Maybe it's not even in Bad Wolf's purview anymore. I mean, Bad Wolf was making it for BBC, of course. But I think this is them sort of just setting up the brand, so to speak, to keep Doctor Who going for as long as possible. I mean, I mentioned it in my Tom Spilsbury chat there, where like I really get a feeling, especially with all the modern Who stuff dropping off of streaming services everywhere, I just think there's going to be a big push or some big thing where all of modern Doctor Who will be at this one place worldwide, be it BritBox or something like that, because BBC Studios owns that. If that's going to be a thing, maybe when the Disney thing officially wraps up, when the War Between the Land and the Sea ends, maybe they'll like actually arrange for the Disney Who stuff to also be on that streaming service at the same time. I don't know, because then you say all of modern Who all in one place and all from BBC Studios.
Maybe
I think this
called
is sort
the
of
Whoniverse at the same time.
The Whoniverse,
that's their branding thing.
The international Hoover. I know it's that on the iPlayer and stuff like that, but to actually have that outside of the UK, because they're doing a big thing on Comic-Con. I think they're it was very region free, if you will, the approach to this. It wasn't very look at English stuff and all that. So it was just like strictly about Doctor Who and everything else.
And this is a way to do that without outright admitting, okay, we're done after this with Disney. I mean, they can't, right? Neither side can say anything till it's done, more or less, I guess. So this is just kind of a good diplomatic way to keep things going, I suppose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Chris?
Did you take note of the next to last paragraph on this? Who gets mentioned about? Anyways,
Go for it.
Luke Spillane.
Yep.
Head of digital fandom, BBC Studios, commented blah blah blah. Luke Spillane, who was the co-host for the Doctor Who fan show with Crystal Lee back in the day.
Yeah.
So he's moving up in the world. Good for him.
Good for him, indeed. Yep. Yep. The quote is, the Whoniverse Show is a celebration of everything lovable Doctor Who. Should have been fans for fans. Yes, that sometimes that's a detriment. But whether you've been watching forever or just tapped back aboard the TARDIS, the show is your front row seat to the heart of the fandom. Expect surprises, special guests, and a whole lot of Who. It did feel like very much like, hey, here's a whole. They talked a little bit about Tear the Zygons. Looking at like a focus back on an older episode, of course, because that's coming out on Blu-ray. It's part like, hey, let's talk about Doctor Who, but also let's go down the list on DoctorWho.tv and see what stuff is for sale. Very much a sort of in keeping with the corporate arm, I think, of BBC Studios selling stuff too. So,
which it's hardly a new thing. How many toys did we buy in the 80s because of the cartoons we watched about them?
Fan expos are that. They're basically a sales force with maybe a couple guests thrown in for good measure.
Yeah.
Creation Con, we just did Star Trek Las Vegas. That's essentially what that is.
Yeah.
Because it's creation.
They make scads of money on STLV and
fine.
Supernatural
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, so no, I don't think it was like something that we planned and delayed. I think it was something that because of the lack of a future, I think they decided we needed to fill the void, and that's where this springs from. I think I like that they sort of gone back to the tried and true a little bit with Crystal and Tyrell because I think I don't think the second season of the official Doctor Who podcast worked as well as the first one. So I think they targeted people like more personalities than people who had enthusiasm for Doctor Who a little bit. So
or potentially knowledge about it. I'm sure, especially new series. I'm sure Crystal D can hold her own against anybody out there for knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just so weird. Something like this as well. The upshots of it are in the grand scheme, it's pretty cheap to produce, and B, it does keep Doctor Who kind of in people's minds, in the zeitgeist, at least to some degree. And the show being off the air is not gonna do that. So
no, this just popped into my head randomly during the second series, because in the first series you could move without tripping over a commentary from RTD and somebody else. Like was there any of that in the second series? I don't remember. Okay, well, that would be another indicator right there.
That was first season, though. Yeah, that was
first season.
Yeah, nothing.
That's the second season. Yeah,
nothing for the second.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. So, very curious to know what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, it looks like BBC Studios show now, baby, and and they do like they've been doing for quite a while now the Saturday YouTube live streams of it, like as we record today. It's a big one based on the Master, a whole bunch of Master episodes and stuff like that, or clips and stuff they do for 2 or 3 hours. The kids are watching YouTube these days when it comes to this stuff. So
just these days, that's not stopping.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. So. Interesting. I look forward to see what's going. The centerpiece of this one was pretty. The tour of the unit thing at Comic-Con as well as the World of Wonders. So I'm curious if there's a hook, if there's an actual hook or something like that for the next episode or two, because
when's war? Well, we actually don't know when War Against the Land and Sea comes out.
Yeah.
But I would assume whenever that is, the episode preceding it will be a bit, or after, it will be a big chunk of here's us behind the scenes at it.
Yeah, probably both. November and December, probably, yeah.
With guest commentator Stefan Powell, perhaps.
Or Pete McTighe will probably be there, I bet, because he co-wrote it and stuff. Everyone seems quite pleased with it.
RTD is pimping it out, but I mean, that's kind of his job.
Yeah, I know. Well, even Tom Spilsbury mentioned towards the end of the interview there that he's talked with Pete McTighe the other day. Saying, yeah, everyone's really pleased with how it's turned out, actually. So, and you're right. It's like, oh yeah, it's going very poorly. We're really having to rework everything in the edit. I mean, they wouldn't say that, but I get
that could be great. Who knows?
I get the sense that maybe they've Torchwood Children of Earth to this thing, and it's actually better than.
Well, let's not boost ourselves up ahead of time here.
It's parts. Yeah, we are doing a Children of Earth rewatch right now, which will come later in the year.
Which turned out great, actually. It is as good as we remember.
Yep. Spoiler alert. Anyway, I mentioned that this news came out that during that actual live launch, they timed it. The Art of Doctor Who, The Art of Time Travel, rather, is the book by Pete McKinstry, who was a concept artist as well for Doctor Who back in the day. There's some real cool looking artwork and stuff from concept art and like the Cybermen stuff, and the official website has like 3 images of it, but the actual Whoniverse show had quite a few more screen grabs of it too. So yeah,
the Citadel looks cool because it's got the same sort of pillory things that the 10th Doctor's TARDIS does, except for a city, which I thought was kind of a neat. Which I don't think they inevitably went for. They went for the classic, which I'm fine with too. Citadel, but it was kind of interesting to see that different take on it.
Yeah, you get the impression that perhaps at one point they thought, what if Gallifrey was grown? Like the TARDIS is grown,
like a loom,
like a loom, Warren. Like a loom. Action dollies. Got some more action dollies to tell you about. The 15th, no dolly in this one per se, but the 15th Doctor's TARDIS is now out from character options with it's the TARDIS basically, but you open the doors.
Malibu Stacy with the new hat personified, because all it is a cardboard insert. And I guess the light's a little different.
I suppose so. Can you just sell the cardboard insert? Maybe not, but...
I mean, if I could get the cardboard insert, that'd be a lot easier.
Well, you know what? This collector's model does come with swappable interior cards. So,
neato.
So there you go. So if you're... I wonder how many...
Does it... It doesn't say that it comes with a Sutek riding it, though.
You gotta add that.
You gotta add that as well. What you do is just sort of get a dog puppet and
Bluey, in fact, and put a little cloak on him.
Have little Bluey riding around the TARDIS.
And then if you have a piece of vacuum hose, you just put some fake vampire teeth on that, and then you got Omega.
That's true.
Some googly eyes.
Yeah.
Actually, if that had come out of Omega's opening there, I would have been much more happier.
I know, me too. There's also the even the latest Dalek set, because everyone loves Daleks. The Eve of the Dalek set with a slightly more chocolatey hue. But also the clamp arm, and then the Gatling gun exterminator gun.
Nobody loves Daleks more than character options loves Daleks. I can tell you that.
That's true. I get the impression
Daleks sell, man.
They sell, man. They sell. They are. I mean, they look great on any bookshelf. Let's face it. When you have a whole line of Daleks, I can't argue
with anything you're saying here.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and Eve of the Daleks is a great story, so it's pretty cool that these are.
I still want, and the next item might actually explain the junkie Dalek from Revolution. I would love to have that as a dolly.
Have they done that yet? Probably not.
I don't know, and I will explain forthright.
Oh, you will.
Well, yeah, so if we can jump over one of these news things to the next one, which is kind of relevant to dollies.
Yeah, it's
Go Figure from Roundel Books comes out in September. I have a copy of this already because I bought it at Gallifrey, and I guess, unbeknownst to me, this was a special for special boys to go to Gallifrey edition, because it says inside special Gallifrey preview edition. Right. So I've got the book in front of me, so in theory I could look up, but I'm not going to right now, whether or not Revolution of Daleks action dollies actually exist. Now, I would take issue with calling it Go Figure. It should be called Go Dolly. But beyond that, and also I can't leaf it around it too much because it's very awkward. It's like sort of, its length is more than its height. So with me on a mic here, it's very hard to hold this heavy, substantial book. But I will tell you, having gone through it, it covers absolutely every dolly that came out, and including ones that didn't. Like Bessie was going to come out, the Minotaur, just a few other ones. Like there's not that many, but there's a bunch of cool ones. A Yeti, they had a Yeti one ready to go, didn't happen. So.
We could take it. We could take it now, character options. Come on.
Yep.
You know?
Also, I love the cover because it's got, let's see, 1, 8, 6, 13, 4, and 14, I guess. Yeah. All looking at 15. with Joe Martin and War Doctor in the back. But the way 13's looking to camera, like, what is this nonsense? It's just perfect.
An aside to the camera.
What is this? And then in the back they have more of them. The rest of the crew are back there.
It's cool. Yeah, it's an homage to the somebody made a action dolly reenactment of the Radio Times 10th anniversary cover, which has the basically around the same. It looks exactly like this, except in where Shooty Gatwa's doctor is, it's John Pertwee, and he's got like a Cyberman, Sea Devil, Dalek, all that sort of coming at him, just like that. And so it's a recreation of that. But yeah, so there you go. We got firsthand evidence that this book is going to be really, really cool.
It exists
when the official thing comes out. Yeah, well, it comes out now. The proper version, the non-Special Boys Go to Gallifrey 1 version, with a special forward by Pete McTighe, who we've already mentioned here.
This also has a special forward by Pete McTighe. So.
Well, all right then. It comes out properly for everyone.
Yes.
Shipping is planned for September 25. You can pre-order the hardback, which comes with special stuff, as well as the paperback too. So. Hardback has a lot more stuff, and it comes with the DVD as well. So anyway,
I have that kicking around somewhere.
Yeah. Well, golly, you get everything, Warren. Look at this.
I had no idea at the time that I thought it just came out then. So I was like, well, all right, I'm buying this. Why wouldn't I? I have to.
Yeah, little did you know, there's a whole documentary about it, about everything on there, Warren, and you've been sitting on it this whole time.
Well, how avid a dollyist am I guess?
I guess not much. I guess you got to bring bookshelf doctors back, and
you keep haranguing me to do that. Well,
you got the you got like a closet full of action dolls.
I know, I really do. I really should do something with these little fools, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Where are we at now? We talked about that. Oh, Doctor Who magazine came out, as mentioned by Tom Spilsbury, because he's not only did he write the stats bit, but he also wrote the his chat and interview with Robin Mukherjee, who of course was going to have a story in season 27 back in 1990, but of course Doctor Who went off the air before that happened. But his script is finally coming to fruition in the form of a Big Finish release, so that's part of it. There's a whole
as it should be.
Yeah, as it should be. There's a whole deep dive into season 13, the Blu-ray set, which of course comes out in next month for the UK and in January for us. So I looked that up with whenever they preview things that I can't have right away, it just makes me go,
They're there.
Anyway, lots of great stuff in there. So. Including a bit of a look into the Ian Marter documentary as well, which is what I'm looking forward to on that set. So that should be good. Anyway, all that is in Doctor Who magazine 620. What else we got here? Also from Randall Books.
Other book from Randall Books.
Yeah, who is doing the Go Figure one. The Time Team Unearthed is a whole collection of Adrian Salmon's artwork for the classic Doctor Who magazine stuff, which is very, very angular and
exactly, very angular. That's
stylish.
What's cool about it. It's hard to place what decade it's in, but it's definitely in a decade that isn't this one. If you know what I'm saying, I couldn't tell you exactly from where. Maybe the early '90s, but
yeah,
that's probably not when it's from. But it
no,
just feels
99
like
to 2009 is when he drew. So that's when this sort of stuff. I like there's a whole the panel that's accompanying the release is various scenes from different classic Who episodes, and it's very stylized, but exactly what each story is.
Yeah.
And
there's a Twin Dilemma one on the lower right or lower left, pardon me, which is I'm like, is that Nestor? It is Nestor. Oh, well done.
Yeah,
I like the State of Decay one toward the top right there.
I know. Yeah, with Jargo there, and I don't know what that. Oh, is that
Camilla and Romana?
There's some Avellans on there. There's the Taran Wood Beast looks awesome. There's the 5 Doctors. There's the Resurrection of the Daleks. There's
the Black Guardian looking even more sinister than usual.
Yep, Earth Shock, where they have Cybermen looking at the 10th planet on their little view screen and stuff. So yeah, so pretty cool artwork. Anyway.
Tiny little bit of survival where Cat Master is beating the living tar out of
out of the Doctor at the bottom there. Yep. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Also comes with the free DVD that Warren might already have. For all that we know.
I don't have this book, so no, I don't.
Yeah, but that is coming out in October from Roundel Books. So
I'm not that special a boy.
No, look at this. Doctor Who's like, who knows when it's coming back on TV, but there's always still so much good stuff coming from various people.
And there will continue to be, I'm sure.
100%. Oh boy, there's a whole bunch of Big Finish stuff we get to tell you about. The Gallifrey Master Part 2 with Eric Roberts looking very pensive on the cover. That is out now as part of the Dark Gallifrey series. Of course, Eric Roberts played the Master in the 1996 TV movie with Paul McGann. Also, Sixth Doctor Adventures Bad Terms release. That's with Perry dressed up as a pirate.
Oh yeah,
on the cover, which I'm sure will be just enough of a selling point right then and there. That's out now. What else is happening from Big Finish as I quickly look through my tabs? There's festive audio dramas coming in for Halloween and Christmas.
I love this Christmas Dalek with the red and green bulbs or whatever.
Little baubles.
The whole body's red and green, yeah.
I want to spend Christmas with that
cool.
Dalek in particular.
Hey, nice work. Yeah. What are you going to say there, Chris?
No, I just agree. Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool.
The inversion of the red and the green every step of the way.
I'll take your word for that because the red being red green colorblind. I'm zooming in. It's good. Is it really different?
It's actually a Hartnell one. It's black and white.
I can't tell the difference. It's red.
I can't really tell. There's a picture of the TARDIS, and I think these might be ribbons or some sort of skin disease. I'm not sure what's going on here.
I think they're cracks.
Okay.
Yeah. What was that episode that had the cracks?
Or like scars.
It's Halloween Apocalypse, wasn't the TARDIS in a recent episode? Wasn't it cracked up like this? Wasn't it in flux?
Maybe
like
I
that?
don't remember.
I don't remember anymore either. It's all blended together. I'm supposed to watch some more.
Well, it's a Halloween thing called Halloween Sea Smoke and Other Stories. So I'd assume that's the reason it's all cracked up and freaked out.
That's the Halloween portion of it. There's 4 stories there, and then there's 4 festive
that's not very Christmassy at all. What's going on here?
No, but anyway, there's a whole host of ones, Sea Smoke and Other Stories, and Doctor Who Christmas. It's a Wonderful War and Other Stories. They're available for pre-order. The Halloween ones come out in December. The Christmas ones in October. I'm lying, of course. That'd be ridiculous. They come out timely because of the holidays, which are coming up soon. So there you go. Audio novellas are some new things. There's a whole brand new range from Big Finish Productions. Audio novellas. I learned this recently, Warren, because I'm not a bookist.
Really?
No, not really. But novellas are basically target novelization length books, right?
Yeah,
Ish.
more or less, I suppose.
Ish.
Kind of. That general neighborhood, sure.
Yeah, 120-minute adventures narrated by celebrated Doctor Who actors and sound effects and music for fully immersive productions. So those are going to start coming out in the weeks and months to come. The Time Splitters by Colin Brake, narrated by Peter Purvis, and then Dimension 13 by David Llewellyn, narrated by John Culshaw. The first 2 to be premiered.
January next year, it says.
There you go. Just in time for Gallifrey 1. Speaking of conventions, I got a couple conventions to tell you about. First off, let me tell you about Long Island Doctor Who, because it's the one I know is going to happen. It's happening next weekend at the Holiday Inn in Islip Airport East. I remember getting is it in Hop On? No, it's in Holtzville now.
Is it Islip?
It's
Long Island's place names are the most confusing on the face of the earth, and I'm including Iceland in that.
That's true.
Well, so many are like Aboriginal names. And
that's true.
There's a weird mix of origins
of indigenous and colonial names all intermingled. Anyway, Elihu. Yes,
I did see that Jason Haig-Ellery had to back out from Elihu. His name is still on their website though.
Oh, I thought it was Chicago TARDIS he had to back out of.
Anyway, Chicago TARDIS?
It was Chicago TARDIS, yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, I know that's right. Joe Martin is going to be there, of course. Caroline Ford, Steph Diwali, Wendy Padbury, Fraser Hines, Mickey Lewis, Amy Benedict, along with others as well. Going to be at Elihu next weekend. So if you're in the area, do pop on by. It is there might be no place further geographically located from where we are to get to when it comes to a Doctor Who convention. That would be kind of cool to go to again. But
thing, just to go back a quick step, there's the thing in Doctor Who Magazine 620 with Mickey Lewis joining Sylvester McCoy in Ukraine to meet Doctor Who fans there.
I know,
That's cool.
Yeah, there was a convention basically for for war-stricken Ukraine sci-fi fans, and Mickey Lewis and Sylvester McCoy going into Ukraine for that, which is a really cool story written by Mickey Lewis. It's sort of told from his point of view and everything. So check that out.
Pretty damn brave too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if they're actually going on the front lines, but in Ukraine,
well, no,
is basically how it goes.
You're in Kiev. I mean, I would be scared.
That's true. And Sylvester McCoy just has that rebellious streak to him that I feel like he'd be the one to go into a war zone for Doctor Who. Absolutely, he would. So that's cool. So Li Who next weekend, August 22nd to 24th, put on by our good friend Ken Deep. It's a great time if you're in the area. Pop on by; you'll have a grand time. Lastly, I'm hesitant to talk about just because Doctor Who Flux. There's Starbury Conventions is hosting a new Doctor Who convention in March of next year, where they promise Ncuti Gatwa, Jodie Whittaker, and Christopher Eccleston.
Not all on the same day,
not on the same day, over the course of the
fight.
weekend. Yeah, 13th to 15th, 2026 in Birmingham, along with Mandip Gill, Naoki Mori, Gareth David Lloyd Kayo, and Annette Ballard and Fadi Al Sayed from Class. The three doctors, three modern doctors, especially Gatwa, given how his exit went. Very intriguing to see about this. Link in the show notes if you want to get tickets to it and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm intrigued by this. Maybe this will prompt a visit to the UK again, because apparently I need Doctor Who related reasons to go to the UK. So
that strikes me as very silly.
I'm sure you could find Doctor Who related reasons without having them in advance.
Or just go. What a crazy idea. Just go to England.
Just go to England? Oh, maybe.
And enjoy it. In fact, don't bother with Doctor Who stuff, says the guy who went to Forbidden Planet at least twice.
says a guy who went to the location of the McDonald's that they use
the sandbaggers.
All right.
Big difference. difference.
Okay. Sandbaggers is way different.
His
I dare you to criticize that.
Yeah.
His Sandbaggers fandom outweighs his Doctor Who fandom. The Sandbaggers podcast he does is at 2,000 episodes.
That's true.
Exactly.
Did a lot.
It's coming back. It's coming back, man.
Minute by minute Sandbaggers episode.
It's been a long wilderness years, but the Sandbaggers is coming back.
It is coming back.
In my head.
Yeah. All right. That's it. That's it for this other epic length episode that we had for you this week again. Look at it. No Doctor Who. We churn out an hour and a half long episodes every single damn week. What is wrong with us?
Everything. Where to begin?
Yeah. Next week, probably back to normal programming. That is being part 3 of our Jamie Magnus Stone miniscope covering 3 episodes of Doctor Who Flux. If you want to watch up and catch up and hear what we're talking about next week, that is what is going to be on the show. So in the meantime and in between time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Morning, Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.